on how to complete the Photoshop interface assignment. When you click on the assignment, you will see that there are a couple instructions on how to get started on it, and then there's also some resources that we'll need while we're working on the assignment, and then a copy of the assignment that we will need to download and open in Photoshop. So if I scroll back up, first thing I'm going to need to do is save that photo to my computer and open it in Photoshop. So I'm going to do that now. I can do that by just right clicking on this image, and then I'm going to click Save Image As, and then I'm going to just go ahead and hit save. I'm not going to worry about changing anything because it will actually just pop up the image right down here, and then once it's downloaded to there, I can just click and drag it into the Photoshop icon. And it will open up into Photoshop for me. Your Photoshop icon might be somewhere different on your computer, but same idea. Once I do that, then now I have the image that I am going to work on for this assignment. You will notice that it looks exactly like what your Photoshop screen looks like, and that is why we're doing this assignment, so that we can start to learn the different parts of Photoshop, so we know where things are and how to access things. So we want to fill out this sheet. We want to put our name, period, and then label all these parts, number 1, 2, 3, 4, so on, all the way down to number 28. The way we're going to do that is we are going to use the type tool, which is the capital T over here on the left hand side in the toolbox. When I click on that, then my cursor changes to what looks like I'm ready to type. So I can just click where I want to start typing, and then I can start putting in my name. And you'll notice that my font is kind of too big. So just like in a Word document or a Google Doc, when I have the type tool up here, I can change the font type, so you can play around and use whatever font you want. So I'll do this typewriter. I'm going to change the font size because it's way too big. Let me get the beginning of my name as well. Okay. Other nice thing is right here where this black square is, up near where I was changing the font and the size. If I click on that, I can actually change the font to whatever color I want. So you can play around with this, use whatever colors you want. You might want to change the color for every single label you make. That's totally fine. And then once I have it, I need to hit this check mark. If I don't hit this, it will seem like your computer's frozen and you'll get frustrated and you won't be able to move on. So make sure you hit this check mark. Keyboard shortcut is you can hit the enter or return button on your keyboard and it'll do the same thing. So I will accept that. I accidentally deleted what I just wrote, so I'll redo it. Alrighty, then I will do the same thing for the period. Do that. Let's say that when I put that in there, it didn't line up exactly where I wanted it to be. Not a problem. I can use the move tool, which is again in the toolbox, but at the very, very top, it looks like 4 arrows pointing in each direction. When I click on that, I can move my font around. And then I can click on the other layer and move it around as well. So after you've done the fonts or your titles, you can move them around after the fact. So now I'm going to start with number 1. 1 through 5, Photoshop does not label for you, so I have provided those names here in the assignment. So this is the part where I was saying that we would need to be referencing while we're doing the assignment. So right here, number 1, it is called the menu bar. So I'm going to have to kind of flip back and forth between the assignment and Photoshop. So now I know number 1 is the menu bar. I'm going to make sure I have the type tool. I'm going to click up here, and I'm going to type menu bar check mark, and here's a prime example of it did not line up quite where I want it, so I'm just going to click the move tool, move it. If I want to do little nudges to get it exactly where I want it, I can use the arrow keys on the keyboard. So now I have that one. I'm going to go back. Next one is tool option bar. So number 2 right here is the tool option bar. Check, move tool, move it into place, click on the type tool, go back to canvas. Number 3 is the toolbox. That's the one I've been talking about that is over here on the side, where we got our type tool and our move tool. Number 4 is the history palette. It is right here. Your history palette might not be open like you'll see on my screen. It isn't open right now, but it's these 3 little squares with an arrow from the bottom to the top. Super helpful. We'll be using this a lot throughout the semester. It allows us to take a bunch of steps back so that we can undo a whole lot of stuff if we've decided that we've done some edits to our photos that we don't like. I can step way back and go all the way to the beginning if I want. So that is the history palette. History palette. Something. Move it into place. And then number 5 is the floating palettes. And it's just all of these palettes here on the left hand side. One that we'll particularly pay attention to is your layer palette, which is down here in the bottom corner of the floating palettes. Move tool, get it right where I want it. Alrighty, so now we're going to label all of the parts, all the different tools in the toolbox, which is on the left side. For the purposes of having room to be able to fill it out, I took a screenshot of the toolbox and moved it into the center of the screen just so that you had enough space. So don't get confused by that. This is just your toolbox that is normally on your left side, moved to the center. And then also, just because of logistics, number 6 will be the top tool. Jumping over to the other side, number 7 is the next tool down. So you kind of have to jump back, forth as we go down. The rest of this Photoshop actually gives us the names for everything. So I'll show you how you can do that. So I'm going to start with number 6. That is that top tool. I can just come over to my toolbox, hover over it, and then right there, Photoshop tells me it is the move tool. So I'm going to grab my type tool, and then I will write move tool, check mark. Okay, next one down is number 7. And it is that rectangular thing, so I'll hover over that, and it says rectangular marquee tool. So then I will type in rectangular marquee tool, and this is one I'm going to have to move. And I'm just going to keep doing that, working my way down the toolbox by just hovering over each of the tools, and then having Photoshop tell me what the name is, and then I'm just typing those names in. You might encounter some tools that on the toolbox here in the worksheet, it looks different than what you have on your toolbox. The reasoning for that is that within each of these tools, there's different variations. So like on this rectangular marquee tool, if I right click on it, you'll see it pulls up all these different options. So like your toolbox might already be on the elliptical marquee. So then when you're looking here, you might stop and be like, wait a minute, that's not the same tool. Look at where it should be on the toolbox and then right click, and you'll see the different variations. So for this, label what tools are being shown here. So if any tools don't look like what is here, go to where it should be, like let's say the paint bucket. If your paint bucket, you don't see a paint bucket on your toolbox, we're gonna look at what is above it and what's below it. We're gonna come over here, find that tool, and then right click, like yours might default to the gradient. So right click, find the paint bucket tool so that we know that that is what that one is called. And then once you have completed the entire worksheet, you have all these filled out, then we need to save it. So you're just going to go up to File, Save As, and then your screen is going to look slightly different. Over here on this left-hand side, you will have a whole bunch of different options for where to save it. If you are working on a school computer, save it to your H drive so that you can access it from any school computer. Your H drive will be over here on the left-hand side under computer, and it will be the start of your last name and then the start of your first name, and then the 0 is like the first part of your school email. That is your H drive, and if you save it to there, then you can access that folder from any school computer. If you are home and you're saving it, then save it to wherever you want to. But we want to rename it. So get in the habit of renaming everything the way I'm going to show you here in a second. So period, so put whatever class period you are in, then underscore, your last name, and then your first name, and then another underscore, and then the name of the assignment. So for this one, I will just put interface. So period, underscore, your last name, your first name, underscore, name of the assignment. Start naming absolutely everything you do in this class that way. Now that I have it renamed, I'm going to change what format or file type we're going to save it as. So if I click on format, some computers might say file type rather than format. They mean the same thing. When I click on the drop down, there are a whole bunch of options. The one I'm looking for is JPEG. You might notice that there's 3 variations of that. I want the top one, just regular JPEG, not JPEG 2000, not JPEG stereo. So I'll click that. I will save it. This little window pops up. If this slidey bar is all the way over to the side, bring it all the way to the top. That will just give us the best quality file. I hit OK, and it's going to save. Now I can just go back in, submit the assignment. I will upload that file, and then you are done with the Photoshop interface worksheet.